In today's modern a-go-go world, most toys that we pick up from retail or order online or steal from birds in the sky are made from movies and TV, meaning they're inspired by plots of movies and TV. Now, it wasn't always like this. There was a time when nobody wanted to touch movie properties, and the movie properties that did get made into toys were few and far between, mostly because movies were one and done and out of the box office. So there's a whole strategy in itself about choosing which movies to turn into toy lines. And of course, everybody who has one wants to see a toy line because, well, there's a lot of money to be made in consumer products. But how do you actually do this?
Oh, short answer yes with an if, long answer no with a but.
Well, much like the movie making process, which is collaborative, it all starts with the script. And hopefully, if you are an established toy company and an established large studio, you're willing to share that script. And not every studio is, and not every toy company has access at this. But when the stars align and you can actually read the script ahead of time, hopefully you're set up for success that no matter how the movie performs, the toy line will still go. Oh, that's usually not the case. Usually the toy line follows the success of the movie, be it big or not. That can lead to clearance aisles or what's called year two product. So specifically with Green Lantern, which I'm showing here, and I'm doing that because I worked on this movie line, how do you actually translate a script into physical product? How do you know what to make? How do you know how many figures to make? Well, there is a little bit of a science to it, and it does come from understanding scripts and whether or not the scripts have what are called toyetic elements in it. And I will tell you, most scripts do not. Sometimes a studio is open to a toy company advising them on what to put in, and most of the time, especially nowadays when a toy company gets a script, it's highly redacted, meaning you may not get the last 20 pages, or there may be large areas missing or crossed off. And it seems kind of odd because the studio would want to partner with the toy manufacturer to make the best product possible. But toys have a way of showing up on shelf sometimes before a toy maker or studio wants them to. For example, there are things that studios don't want to reveal to the public. They want to have that surprise moment, that gasp in the theaters. So because of that, they'll hold things back from toy companies. But with the information you do have, however limited or abundant it is, and there are certainly studios that will share the entire script, well, from that you go to what's called a B sheet, which you see here, which is where you have drawings of all the different toys, all the SKUs, and all of the different assortments. And by different assortments, I mean there's multiple things, not just action figures. And sometimes the figures don't exactly match the movie. Like, for example, Stell there on the right side, that robot with the beady green eyes next to Tomar Ray. Well, when we saw the concept art for that, he looked like this, which is why the action figure looked like this. In the actual movie process, he completely changed to being much more of kind of like a Terminator-looking robot, less insecty, I guess one could say. And of course, this isn't something proprietary to movies that don't take off. This happens with major blockbusters that do well, like in Infinity War, originally Bruce Banner Hulk as Smart Hulk was going to bust out of the Hulk armor, or the Hulkbuster armor, but that got cut. So there were toys, though, that showed up at market showing this scene because the toys are developed so far ahead that for edits that happen deep in the process, they could be missed in communication. And that's really the key, is for the studio and the toy company to be talking to each other constantly, and hopefully changes that happen in the film happen early enough they could still be reflected in the toy line. But it doesn't happen that often, especially because of how early toy lines have to be designed. Now, you're not just making action figures. You're ideally also making what's called role play, which are items developed for children to put on to be either weapons or outfits. Think of it as Halloween costumes plussed up, sometimes with action features. That's what role play is. And sometimes studios will be willing to work with you on different SKUs. For example, the Green Lantern Gatling gun you just saw was something that the studio was willing to put in the movie. Not only that, but they put it in the trailer, and this was the very first CGI shot they did, because they wanted to support the toy line. Now, when it comes to figures, roleplay is a little bit easier. You find the signature weapon. When you're trying to figure out exactly which characters to translate from a script into a toy line, well, it can be a bit of a challenge, but it is very formulaic. So you'll notice that almost every toy line follows this formula. Main hero variant, main hero friend, villain, secondary villain, and wildcard figure. And you might be even looking at this image saying, well, that doesn't quite match up. No, it doesn't happen all the time. But for the most part, if you look at a toy line, you're going to see that the main item is the hero, usually twice in the pack, followed by the main villain, because these are the characters that are going to have the most screen time, but also create the conflict, which is how most children play with toys. It's called open-ended play. And then the third SKU is usually going to be a variant of the main hero, because that is inevitably the best-selling toy in the action figure assortment. So doing two versions of the main hero is very advantageous because, well, you want to make sure there's one on shelf at all times when mom, kid, grandma, gift giver, or adult collector is passing the aisle. That's the one they're going to want. After that, usually you get secondary hero. So, for Batman, of course, you're probably going to get a Robin or a Batgirl or any one of the allies that hangs out with him. After that, for your fourth figure, it's usually going to be a secondary villain. Again, playing up that conflict play. Because even if you can't find the main villain, at least if you can find the second villain, now you can play out that open-ended conflict. Without a villain, you just have a hero. And then finally, when there's a fifth slot, it usually goes to something that's called a wild card. This can either be a third repaint or version of the main hero, or what's called a breakout character. Often films have a character that you're betting on, hoping will be very toyetic and popular. So a really good example of this is in Guardians of the Galaxy, Rocket Raccoon, sorry, Rocket Red is a Justice League International character, Rocket Raccoon and Groot were huge breakout characters, but you didn't see that many toys of them because it was a bet. All right, so let's see how this plays out. You can see things like Marvel Legends. Oh, there you go. Spider-Man in that mix. Once, twice, even third times. You got your main villain, J. Jonah Jameson. You've got your secondary hero, Doctor Strange. And then you get a third villain in the form of Shriek. And then, of course, you get another villain from the comic books and even another Spider-Man. So it follows that format. Again, let's look at another Marvel Legends wave, the one that followed up Doctor Strange, Madness in the Multiverse, or whatever they wanted to call it. So yeah, you got Doctor Strange version 1, version 2, you got the main hero, main villain, secondary hero Wong, breakout character, American Chavez. Now, when you have characters or lines that aren't well known, like when Guardians of the Galaxy first came out, as I mentioned, Rocket Raccoon was a big bet. And you'll notice Iron Man was in that. Iron Man was also in Shang-Chi's wave, as was a Captain America variant. This is done for an unproven property. You're going to want to backload that up with proven characters, which is why both Guardians and Shang-Chi both had Iron Man in the assortment, doubled up, because that character is a guaranteed sell. Now, in addition to basic figures, in order to fill out a planogram, you'll also want deluxe figures. This is done for an additional price point so that there's what's called a buy-up, where parents, if the kid is really into a brand, will purchase additional SKUs. And it, again, helps fill out that 3, 4, 5 feet. So for Green Lantern, to continue that example, the deluxe line were called Battle Smashers, Battle Blasters, Battle Shifters. That's what that was. God, it's been a long time. Battle Shifters. And they instantly transformed, as with that call out there. All right. Now, you also, sometimes the villain is bigger than the main heroes. This happens a lot because a villain has to be powerful and a threat, and usually size does matter in that sense. And sometimes these villains are sold separately. Other times, they're sold in what's called a battle in the box, where the villain will be paired with one or two heroes, because this makes a great gift set. It's an instant play pattern for a child where they're going to be able to play right out of the box, good guy versus bad guy. Now, the final thing that goes into designing a toy line for a movie is what's called a TV driver. This is the item that's going to be advertised on TV, higher priced, you're not expecting everyone to get it, but ideally, in a perfect world, it is tied into the play pattern or theme of the basic figures and pays that off. A perfect example is Castle Grayskull from 1982. So this was the big box item, this was the castle. Back then, it wasn't He-Man's castle. It was more of a capture the flag thing, quite literally, where whoever owned the castle got to go up and turn the flag around. It was, what brought the whole line together. It ties everything. It connects the basic figures to the deluxe figures to the fig vehicles to a playset. And yes, it's usually promoted to the market as being advertised on TV because retailers want to know that a company is going to put TV dollars behind a line. They're going to advertise it. They're going to use their funds to do this, and that's going to make a retailer more likely to buy the entire line, knowing that there is a TV driver that has what's called non-media and media funds behind it. So going back to the Green Lantern line that I worked on, for our TV driver, we decided to do Green Lantern's jet, since not only Hal Jordan is a pilot in his sort of real life, but he actually creates construct jets, at the very end of the movie. So our TV driver was the Green Lantern Ring Blast jet, which was also a variant of the Deluxe Figures. It used the same battle shifters technology, which was kind of like plastic origami, plastic pieces that folded up. So this was just a bigger version of that concept that was in the Deluxe Figures. So for, a buy-up price, you could get Hal Jordan with a plastic origami hand, and then if you wanted the TV driver on the bottom shelf, it was just a much larger version of this, in this case a giant jet that could fold up into a tank. Honestly, I thought this was an amazing toy, and it really is just a shame the movie didn't do better. God, I really need to talk better. All right. Now, the final leg is customized. So these are SKUs that are designed for one retailer, and every retailer, especially if it's a blockbuster movie that they're going to give over 3 feet to, are going to want unique items in the line designed to draw people into that store. And it's a challenge because every retailer wants this, so you have to find some way to differentiate every single retailer. Sometimes this is done by giving retailers themes. Other times it's done by having retailers focus on different parts of the toy buying public. Maybe it's just collector, maybe it's just preschool. So whatever it is, finding ways to have something unique for every major retailer is part of the bargain price, or rather the agreement between retailer and manufacturer. Retailer says, yeah, we'll give you 4 feet in our toy aisle, but you need to give us exclusive or customized items so that people will come to our store and not one of our competitors. And since every single store wants an exclusive, well, it kind of almost, cancels that effect out. And at the end of the day, what you wind up just doing is hoping and praying and waiting for that first weekend box office to see if your toy line is going to sell. It's completely connected to the success of the movie. I've tried to find an example of a toy line that did really well where the movie bombed, but honestly, I have yet to find one, and I've had that on my list forever. Movies and toys are like strapping a rocket to your back. You just have to hope and pray it works. And if it does work, it will take you to the stratosphere. If it doesn't, it's going to blow you up into little pieces, and, well, you basically have to carry on. Now, there's no guarantee. There's absolutely none. Sometimes, even in a given franchise where you've had hit after hit after hit, even in a very toyetic franchise like things like Toy Story or Star Wars, well, there's no guarantee that every sequel within this toy IP universe is going to work. Toys and movies do bomb all the time. And in no way can you put out a product, a movie, and say, yes, this is going to have guaranteed toy sales. Solo basically proved that. Everyone thought anything Star Wars is going to sell, and, well, after this, that's why you didn't see as many Episode 9 toys on shelf. Solo really turned retailers off to Star Wars because they heavily invested it, thinking it was a guarantee, and when it wasn't, well, that affected Star Wars for years to come. Essentially, at the end, you can just dust yourself off and try again. You hope that your toy line's going to do well, and sometimes toy lines are cooler than the movie. I kind of think the Green Lantern toy line was. I hope this clarified and helped give some insight into how toy lines are designed based on movies, and hopefully you can do it early in the process. Please do share this with others. It's the best way to support this channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comments section.